Hey everyone, we're live again. Arsenal Fan Circle Thursday night. I've got Stan, Tony, and Rohan. Stan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, and good evening to everyone.
Tony, thanks for coming in.
No problem.
And Rohan, thanks again, Rohan.
Thank you, Ray.
This is going to be a tongue twister free Thursday night. See, I tried to do it myself again. Um, Hey, tonight we're going to talk about Arteta. He's had 15 games in charge. Let's try and talk about some of the tendencies that we've noticed over the course of 15 games. Some of the things that he said he was going to do. We're going to harken back to the first press conference as well to remind ourselves of all the things. I think it's a good time to, remind ourselves of the things that he talked about. And so, what are you interested in seeing, Stan? If we remind ourselves all the things he's talked about in that first press conference.
Well, yeah, I can't actually remember much about the first press conference, but in all of his press conferences, he says everything that I want to hear. He talks about the togetherness of the team. He's very focused on discipline. I mean, he says everything that I want a manager to be saying, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? But not wanting to go off of track. There's only so much that he's going to be able to do. It's going to be so important that he gets the backing to be able to carry it through. Otherwise, it's hollow words if his hands are tied.
You're only as good as the tools that you have, Tony.
Exactly.
Right, Tony?
Yep.
Anything you're interested in? We'll look back in the first press conference and see what he said. I remember things like when times get hard and tree shakes, Rohan, that you stay together as a unit.
Yeah, the operative word in his first interview, and I did rewatch it, was the energy, right? He talked about the energy a number of times. He said that he was at the Emirates with Man City a couple of weeks ago, and then he felt that the energy was down, and then his idea or his aim was to bring up the energy in the club and to have everyone believing, have everyone on side. And he has brought a shift in the energy because I feel all the fans believe in him. And, a big part of it is because he's a great communicator. Like Stan said, he's precise and he's clear. And all of his press conferences have been on point, and they have just signaled that he has a lot of respect for the club and he wants the club to go in the right direction. He feels that he's prepared, but that's only half the job because it's a competitive league and he needs all the support that he can get.
Yeah, definitely. So have I shared the screen correctly with you guys? Can you see that?
No.
Not yet. Okay. We'll get this one. Okay.
I did notice on Sunday's show when I was watching that we've gone high tech.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with the times here, Stan. It's not easy though. All right, let's get started on what it means to be back at Arsenal. We're going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. I've been back home, extremely happy and proud to be given the opportunity to be manager of the football club. I've been preparing for a few years for the challenge. He knows the expectations, knows the level and the stature of the club and what it deserves. So he's ready for that challenge. I can't wait to start working with the players and everybody here at the club. But I've got a good vibe. I'm sensing a good energy since I walked in at London Colney. So it's given me more energy and I feel so happy. So that's the first things that he said there on what it means to be back at Arsenal. And how it felt to be walking back into the stadium and the training ground. It was strange. He's been 4 or 5 years away in a different role, in a different position, but it always a dream for him to come back to the club one day. He said that he was going outside to learn and he's going to come back and be prepared and hopefully one day get the opportunity to make that step. He has so much respect for the football club that if he didn't feel that he's ready, he wouldn't have taken it, and he's prepared for this. Then I wouldn't be sitting in this chair. So he's basically saying everyone that he wouldn't have taken the position if he didn't feel that he wasn't ready for it. You know, any comments?
I, yeah, I mean, it's everything that you want to hear, and I don't want to take anything away from him at all. But let's be honest, right? Let's say he'd been appointed the manager of Everton. You could put that exact statement out and just change the word for Everton.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, it's just generic, right? It's everything. You know, they're using the word home. I'm back home. Well, you know, he played at Celtic as well. He played at PSG. He's played at Everton before. He ever played at Arsenal at the end of his career. But I'm glad he's our manager. But again, just repeating what I said a few moments ago. Talk is all good. Talk is all good. We could, you know, but it's got to be proven now that he's going to be given the tools to help move us forward. You know, and I was also, you know, looking at his first season with Arsenal, for me, it was like, let's use this first season to get the teething problems out, because it is his first season as a team coach. And no matter how good he's been learning, once you're in that driving seat and it's now happening to you in real time, there's going to be some mistakes along the way. And he did make some mistakes along the way. And I cited the example of a few times where, you know, we may have been struggling to get a better result in the game, and we finished the game and we've still got 2 subs on the bench, which for me that's criminal. You know, you don't see the game out if you're chasing it with change in your pocket. You just don't do it.
And Stan, in most of our games, it's not like we've been coasting through the games. We've been drawing some games. We haven't won games clearly, except for a couple of the games. So there's times when maybe we did need that extra bit of energy off the bench.
So I was kind of, you know, wanting this season to be the one where he could make those mistakes, make them now, and then at the end of the season, you can sit back and, you know, he seems like someone that likes to reflect and look over what he's been doing and hopefully see those mistakes and not make them again. So I hope he's been doing that already now. He's had a lot of time in his hands. But it's weird because how do we feel about this? You know, usually in your first season, you've got the phrase, well, it's his first season, we can give him a bit of a pass. Are we still considering it his first season because there's been such a break? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of feels like we're starting a little mini season now. It's
exactly.
not the same season. So are we still giving him a bit of a pass, or are the expectations a little bit higher? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and we're going to go through it a little bit later as well. I'll tell you the record points the amount of points that we've garnered from 10. It's actually perfect because we've now played 10 Premier League games, and we're going to finish with 10 Premier League games. So his record before will be what it's going to be till the end of the season now, if you know what I mean. But I'm going to move on to the next section. I'll go through the next section with Rohan, and then after that, the following section with Tony. So Rohan, the next section is on what he wanted to change. First thing is a little bit to change the energy. Last week I was here with Manchester City, and it's actually funny that we're going to play City on our next fixture as well. He was a little bit down after the game. He felt after what was going on. So we have to try and engage everybody. Try to convince the players to accept a different process, a different way of thinking. And he wants to get all the staff and everybody at the club with the same mindset. We have to build a culture that has to sustain the rest. If you don't have the right culture in difficult moments, the tree is going to shake. And that's the one thing that I remember from the press conferences. The tree is going to shake. So what are we going to do when times are difficult? So his job is to convince everybody that this is how we are going to live from now on. How we're going to be part of the organization. It has to be in these terms and in this way. And there was a couple of non-negotiables as well, Rohan. So I'll just finish it out. Obviously, now we need to make an immediate impact. We need to start winning games, and we need to start raise the level of confidence of the players. And finally, we need the fans. We need to engage them. We need to be able to transmit our behaviors, our intentions, what we want to bring to the football club. I think it's the only way where we give them a little bit, they give us a little bit, and suddenly we feel that connection. Because when you plug these two things together is so powerful. I've been outside this football club, and when you look outside at it, you say, "Wow, this is massive." So this is how I'm feeling. There is so much to do. I'm so excited. I think we have the right team. I don't know what he really meant there. We can pick that one over. I have many conversations with the senior people at the club, and I feel we're on the same path. So I have a good feeling. So Rohan, you're taking all of that.
Some things generic, some things, I think he genuinely believes, but he wouldn't say anything different, right? So I'm not gonna completely judge him on what he's saying, what he said, but
Yeah,
he's touched on a few very important points, which I spoke about some time ago, which was
yeah,
the energy of the club, and I can't quite remember what the energy was like once Emery took over, because I don't think that people, maybe it was just, there was some sadness of Wenger going, maybe it's just me, but, it was, people were a little unsure, but with Unai Emery, there was just anger. And when he left, there was like, people were like, good riddance. And then, Arteta came in, and Emery's issue was communication, and he is just such a good communicator that it's sort of lifted everyone's spirit. But the Arsenal fan base over the past like 5 7 years at least has become a divided fan base. People look at us as being, sort of always divided. They can poke fun at us because nobody agrees with the next guy. And lifting the energy means everybody supports one cause, right? Like, all
yeah,
of us are behind the
yeah.
manager, which I feel is true. Now, I don't think there's any fan who says that Arteta is not the right guy. I haven't met those people yet. So everybody has that belief. Everybody, at least, I don't know where that belief comes from. I think every team has that belief in their manager that this guy is going to be the right guy for us. But we have that. But to raise our spirits and to, sort of have, uh, a unity with the fans, I'd really enjoy that. Everybody
Mhm.
going for one cause. But what made me unsure about his speech was, I have discussed the vision with the higher ups, and we have the same vision,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
which rings alarm bells.
Some of the things I liked were the non-negotiables as well, so that everyone is going to start rowing in the same direction. And he talked about the need to start winning. Well, that didn't happen right away, but we have gotten into a groove now. It took a little while for him to develop the style of the team.
Need him to be ruthless, right? And maybe he's
Yeah,
shown that with AMN, when he's taken him out because he
yeah,
didn't want to play
yeah,
right back. But we want
and
to see that. We want to see him ruthless, making those decisions for the best, for the betterment of the team, but also not trying to stamp his authority so much. Like, Emery, I think, got, after his experience with Neymar at PSG, he got, too concerned about his image, and that's
super.
why he
Yeah,
sort of picked on Ozil real strong.
yeah.
There's a way to do that, and he was
It's
sending a clear message, but it.
Yeah, it's like that teacher who's been bullied year after year from from the kids coming in, and he's determined that next year not to be bullied, and that's what Emery was with Ozil, I believe. Um, but Tony, I'll give you the next section. On
Exactly.
whether on what huh on whether the club has lost its way, Tony. That's what I'm sensing from the outside. I would like to start to make some steps and start to understand the reasons why. There will be reasons behind it and a history behind it. I have to try to understand quickly why this is to implement certain things that will be quick wins for the players, the staff, and everybody. That is the challenge now. We don't have much time to train, much time to talk about other things because there are some important games coming up. We have to create the right vibe, the right energy, and everybody at the organization has to feel so privileged to be here. There is no other way. So, Tony, you're right. When he took over on the 20th of December, it was a very, very busy Christmas program. And now, as Stan said, it's almost like he's got a mini preseason here. So just let me know what you think about that comment there and whether the club had lost its way.
He kind of goes about the same thing. Talking about what's went wrong the last 18 months, saying he didn't want to speak about it, but goes directly to the players' energy, and seems like players is dropping tools and no energy. Pet peeve there.
Yeah, and he wanted to quickly understand why this happened. Well, I hope at this point that he has done that, and everybody's now rowing in the same direction. And we'll just skip over what he's learned from Pep Guardiola. Um, Stan, on concerns over his lack of experience, I completely understand their concern. That's the only thing I can say, but I will try to convince them that I'm prepared, that I wouldn't be sitting here if I honestly didn't think I'm prepared for this responsibility. And he goes on to say he'll burn every drop of blood for the football club to make it better, Stan.
I think it's sort of like when he's been a manager for say 18 months, that would be the time that I would be looking back to sort of this kind of a transcript and saying, okay, let's see what he said when he came in. And let's look back now over the 18 months and see if the things that he said have actually happened. I mean, you know, Unai Emery probably said all of the same things when he came in. The problem was we just didn't understand it. So it was kind of hard to sort of look back and sort of reflect when I got to sort of almost 18 months of him, because I couldn't quite work out what it was that he was trying to do. I'm more than happy to give Mikel Arteta the time to get his ideals into the squad and to get his stamp on the team. But just touching on what you said there regarding Unai Emery and Mesut Ozil, you've got to remember that when Unai Emery took a tough stance with Mesut Ozil, he told us that he had the backing of the hierarchy to do so, and that himself and the like the football directors and so forth, Raul and so forth, they were all on the same page. The situation is that Unai Emery is now gone, but those other people that were also aligned with the head coach to move him on are still there. So, you know, are we to believe that everything is now fine and dandy, or is there still a little bit maybe of underlying resentment between those two parties?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it's probably one of the reasons why, you know, Mesut Ozil wasn't so ready to easily lay down and give up his pay cut without having more answers, because he's probably got a little bit of mistrust about the board's intentions when it comes to his future as an Arsenal player, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Rohan, on how close he came to getting the job 18 months ago. A little bit close. It wasn't the right time. When things don't happen, it's because it isn't the right time. The right time came now, and I'm glad. I learned a lot from that experience as well. It was great to be part of a process of that nature. I was very prepared for this one. I think it helped. I think it was a very positive thing to happen. And Rohan, maybe things happened for a reason. Maybe he wasn't ready when Unai Emery took over.
Dropped out.
Rohan dropped out. That gets to you, Tony, then. So maybe he wasn't ready, or Stan, whoever wants to jump in. I think it would have been a bridge too far for him to come in when Unai Emery started as well.
I still don't think the power that he wanted at the time is why he didn't end up taking the job. I think he wanted.
And we got Rohan.
Now Rohan can answer.
So Rohan, maybe 18 months ago was a little bit too soon for Arteta to come in when Unai Emery took the post.
I think 18 months ago he had just got maybe less than 2 seasons of experience with Pep, and he pointed out that if I didn't feel prepared, I wouldn't be here, and maybe at that point he didn't feel prepared, and I don't know how prepared he is even now, considering that he hasn't really seen a slump, right? The 3 seasons that he was there with Pep, or rather the 2 seasons that he was there, Pep won the league, and so the only disappointment that he probably saw was the Champions League. So, and if you take that away as well, then that's some more time that's gone away.
Yeah.
This season was when Pep really faced some real difficulties, when he had real choices to make with Laporte injured, Sane injured, and all of that, and that must have been an experience for Arteta as well.
Yeah. And I think we can skip through most of the rest of this. He talks about what Arsenal means to him. When he was in England, it was the closest thing to Barcelona, the style of play and the values. And he goes on to talk about Arsene Wenger. And then we all know what's been going well. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We all know what's been going wrong at Arsenal in the last 18 months. And then on being the youngest Premier League. This one is important, I think. On Mesut Ozil's stand, you want to take this section?
Why not?
Why not? He's a massive player for this football club. As I said before, what I want is to understand how they are feeling and what they need. It's not so much about what I need. You have to understand them. Sometimes with conversation, you get to understand the point. When you understand them, I can take the excuses out of them and focus on the things that are relevant. I think that's important. You can take the excuses out of them and focus on the things that are relevant, have an impact on the team on and off the pitch. Of course, he's a massive player. I work with him, and I know when he clicks, what he can bring to the team. It's my job to get the best out of him, of course.
Right, they're not going to be right. It doesn't matter how much he's bigging him up there. You know, that contract is either going to get wound down, and from what Mesut Ozil's representative, Dr. Erkut Sogor, whatever his name is, says,
yeah,
winding it right down to the death. Unless I would imagine a club comes in that's to his that's suited to him, and they're going to offer him a comparative wage. Other than that, he's seeing it right out. So, anything to do with Mesut Ozil is moot. And the only thing about that is that if he's going to see his contract out, my biggest worry is that does that mean that we're stuck with him and we have to play him every game he's fit until his contract runs out? Or is there a possibility that we could at least spend some money and buy maybe another creative player that plays in and around that kind of part of the pitch? Do you know what I mean? Or is it we don't have the money, so it's Mesut Ozil or no one until he goes, and then we look either inwards of promoting someone from within, or we spend money. I really hope that over the next year, it's going to be the former, that we spend a little bit of money and we're not just stuck with Mesut Ozil for all of those games.
I'll tell you, I was looking at I did some research, and in the last few games, Ceballos has come into the team. He played in the West Ham game. Ozil was in the team as well, but Ceballos has played some more games. And I think that Arteta was getting to the point where Ceballos is going to have more minutes toward the end of the season, and Ozil was going to get reduced minutes toward the end of the season. And I don't know if they're going to pursue Ceballos, but I do think that they will have a creative midfield player on the lookout for a creative midfielder, and Ozil's influence on the team will be reduced.
Can I just say that it seemed to me that when Danny, near the end before football stopped, Danny Ceballos wasn't getting in the team instead of Ozil. They were getting in the team together.
Yes.
My biggest worry watching that was we've got a handful of players that are supposed to be trying to stamp their place into the first team, right? You could look at Joe Willock as one. Yeah. You could also look at who's the other one there in the midfield? His name's just right out of my head. But Ainsley Maitland-Niles. But if you've got a player on loan and you've got some young players that you've brought for your academy, you would usually think that a manager is going to sort of like give more minutes to those youth, the future. But he seems to be giving those minutes more to Danny Ceballos, which tells me that maybe a couple of those young players, he doesn't hold them in such high regard.
Yeah.
Because the minutes, right? Somebody like a Joe Willock or Ainsley Maitland-Niles, you think that they would be getting more minutes ahead, because it does sound to me that Danny Ceballos isn't going to stay. Whether we want him or not, I don't think Dani Ceballos wants to stay. He wants to go back to Madrid and try and cement a place there, or go back to Spain.
I agree with you for sure, but Ceballos did play in that home leg against Olympiacos, which was a big tie, and he did play in the West Ham game alongside Ozil. He did not play in the FA Cup game away to Portsmouth, and Joe Willock did play in that game. So, that points to the more important games that Ceballos is getting in there, and Joe Willock is getting the cup games.
Joe Willock and Ceballos aren't the same kettle of fish, not at the moment at least.
They are similar kind of players, not exactly the same, but in terms of what we have in our squad, Rohan, wouldn't you say they're like for like?
No. I'm not saying in terms of position, but in terms of their current ability. Ceballos is better than Willock, and I think the point was to play to win. And I'm not really sure whether they plan on extending Ceballos' contract, because that might have been another reason, because they still have to make a decision as to what needs to be done with his contract, right? So they have to give a run in to assess whether or not he's going to stay. So there's just so many moving parts to this whole conversation.
There's so many moving parts, and we'll definitely get into them in a little bit. Let me just finish this section here myself on what Arsenal can achieve this season. I think this is important. I think to set targets at the moment is not what I would like to do. I would like to take it day by day. We have a lot of things to do, but what is clear is that the ambitions of this club are very clear. You have to be in Europe. I'm thinking he's talking about Champions League, maybe Europa League at minimum. You have to fight for trophies, and the rest is not good enough. It's as simple as that. To talk about this now is a little bit far away. I would like to talk about what we're going to be doing tomorrow, lifting the morale of the team, etc., etc. So, he set the bar high himself by sort of saying you have to be in Europe and you have to set the bar high, So I would not criticize him for going out of Europe. It was not his fault. I mean, the players we have are the players we have, Stan.
We should be, if I was in Nicolas Pepe's shoes, there's two things that I would be aiming for, and that is to get as far as I can in the FA Cup and try and win it. It's our cup anyway, right? And the second thing would be to try and at least get us into the Europa League. Because if you can do that, you have to keep your paymasters happy, and it keeps us in and around, a Europe competition. However, like you say, Ray, if we fail to do that, I would be disappointed, but I'm not going to demand his head on a plate. Do you know what I mean? Because it is his first season, and it's been. Can you imagine? This is your first season, and the ride he's had so far. I mean, he was struck down with the plague for a while. There's been, no football. When we do go back, it's going to be a straight football. For someone in their first season in management, this is a baptism of fire. Make no doubt about it. I want him to do as best as he can. But, when we go into next season and we've had our transfer window and we know what it is that we've got to work with, then that's when the hard work for me really starts.
Yeah.
This season, I want him to get rid of his bad habits, his thieving habits, if you will. But obviously, I want him to try and do as best as he can. And he's probably thinking the same way. He's a competitive chap,
Yeah. Let's take care of this question, then we'll really get in depth into the squad. Rohan, what if Arsenal won the Europa League versus Chelsea? What would have happened? So look into your crystal ball. We're in the Champions League this season. Unai Emery, did he mess it up in the Champions League?
He did mess it up, but the team also didn't perform. But I think that Europa League is a one-off game, right? Europa League final is a one-off game. We could have had a bad game, but Chelsea could have had a worse game, and we could have won that. Maybe, let's say, on penalties, we could have won that. But the season and the Premier League is where the bread and butter lies, right? And that in my opinion, winning the Premier League sometimes is more difficult than winning the Champions League, right? So Champions League has 13
Yes.
games.
Yeah.
6 out of that is in the group stage. Liverpool won the Champions League after losing more games in the Champions League compared to they lost one game in the Premier League and they didn't win it. So the truth would have come out. And his slump was not only this season, it was for 6 or 7, 8 games of last season as well.
Yeah. The
So,
truth
I
always
mean,
comes out.
he was a goner.
So, but Norman's saying if we had won the Europa League, we're in the Champions League, we would surely still have progressed to the knockout stages this season, even under Unai Emery. Is that ballsy to say, Tony?
No, we started off the season good. We were sitting third, and the first part of October, I think we would have did okay with Champions League.
Yeah, yeah. So I think things would have looked a lot different if it's a big if to beat Chelsea. And let's not forget Unai Emery picked Peter Cech in goal, which wasn't the best move for me either. Well, let's break things down by goalkeeper, defense, midfield, and strikers, and we'll go through the team. Rohan, you had a point?
We have to remember, we didn't just lose the final. We got thrashed. We got thrashed 4-1. So,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
We did have a penalty shout in the early part of the first half.
See, here's the thing, right? Had we won that final, there's probably a high chance that they would have extended his contract. So where we are today now, would we be in a situation where the team would have settled and we'd be happy with him as manager? Or would it be a case of he's got us to the final one, and they've given him a contract, the wheels still fall off, and now we're in a situation where we want to get rid, but it's going to cost the club a lot more now to get rid of this guy. And we all know that, they're counting the pennies at the moment.
The inevitable has just happened a little bit sooner.
It probably worked out the best way it could have.
Probably.
In a way.
Yeah. In a way, right? You're right. And like you say, Stan, I'm really, really interested in the FA Cup this season. I think we've got a really good chance of doing that. Okay, Bernd Leno. He has performed very, very well this season. For me, he's in the top 3 goalkeepers in the league. You've got a lot of people will poo-poo that kind of statement, but what do you all think of Bernd Leno?
I like Leno. I think he's a good shot stopper, but
yeah,
and he's definitely been one of our best performers. But that being said, 2 issues with his game very, very clearly. One is distribution, too slow.
Mm-hmm.
The other is him against a crossed ball or a corner. He seems to not be able to figure out whether he has to go out or not, and sometimes gets caught under the ball. That's cost us a couple of games, and I'm not going to blame him because he saved much more than he's cost us. But these are 2 clear issues that he has.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed from looking at all of the 15 games, Stan, is David Luiz is the mainstay in the team. He is one of the first players that gets onto the team sheet for Arteta.
I know it baffles me, but then again, it's what we've got, right? We don't have, we've got a trio of senior, experienced defenders, yeah, and every one of them ain't worth a dog's apple. To be fair, do you know what I mean? Let's be fair, right? If you were building a football team, whether it be on FIFA, Football Manager, in real life or whatever, and you could have the powers to do, none of those 3 would be in your starting 11. They wouldn't. So, I mean, the story was that he wasn't going to be staying, but now it seems like, I don't know if you saw the article from his manager, his financial guy, Vieira, said that it wasn't him. It was the guy that runs Benfica. They're really good friends. Yeah, Robbie's on AFTV. Got the right channel. But thank you for joining us, man. Shoots me on in a minute, so stick around. So the guy that owns Benfica, they're really good friends. Apparently, he's almost like a father figure to David Luiz. And he said that he rang David Luiz to have a chat with him, and he was in the car with his agent on his way to Arsenal to re-sign his contract. That was the words he said in the article. So it seems like David Luiz will be staying for another season. So then we can only hope that the other two from miserable trio will be on their way out.
And of those two, Stan, it seems that Socrates is the favored over Mustafi. He has played in more games alongside David Luiz.
What do you mean the favourite? Like a favourite to leave or a favourite to stay? How are you using the word favourite?
Favored would it be? When you're looking for your second central defender, it's more likely to be Socrates than Colonel Mustard.
I just think, and I think we spoke about this before, when you look at that trio, I always try to be a little more cutthroat. I think who's made the least mistakes? Who's cost you the less points in games? You know, who's the one that instead of getting 1 point, instead of getting 3 points out of a game for a win, you've only got a draw and you've walked away with 1 point. And I think that Socrates is probably the less guilty out of all three of them.
Yeah.
David Luiz in the short time has been here has definitely cost us points.
Yeah, and if you're in need of goals as well, Socrates has scored 2 of the 23 goals under Mikel Arteta in those 15 games. So he's going to get you a few goals because God knows we're not getting any from midfield.
The conundrum that you have though is like, even though Socrates is the one that I think has cost us the less points, if you've got young defenders coming through and like someone like William Saliba coming in, and you get rid of David Luiz and Colonel Mustard, then it's Socrates is the one that you're really going to have as their mentor. So I kind of understand it a little bit more, saying even though David Luiz is a bit shit, he's got a football brain on him, and I'm sure that good habits, a little bit of cleverness, a little bit of understanding how to read the game. I can understand that for the mentorship. So it's a conundrum. It really is a conundrum because they're all rubbish. You're looking at the one that's going to cost you the less points. Is he the one that you really want bringing in a fresh new player and learning habits from?
No.
I don't know what you do.
No. David Luiz is the lesser of all of those three evils. Tony, looking to me like in the right back, let's talk about the right back situation. I'll throw this out to the whole panel as well. Seems to me he did start out playing with Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and he had some really, really good games, especially against Manchester United. He combined very, very well with Pepe on the right-hand side. Ainsley Maitland-Niles was playing very, very well in the first around Christmas time. Kind of fell off the cliff a little bit. We don't know what happened to Ainsley Maitland-Niles. And since Bellerin has come back to fitness, recovered from his injury, Bellerin has kind of reclaimed that non-competitive right-sided defensive spot.
I don't know what Niles did to spot what he said, or it had to be something he's doing off the field, because on the field he is one of our better players under Arteta.
Yeah, it's staggering to try to pick the bones out of this one, Rohan, and try to understand what actually happened with Ainsley Maitland-Niles.
He had the option to play for Arsenal Football Club. Agreed that it's not his preferred position, but the way that Pep plays, and so I would assume it translates into a bit like how Arteta plays. Arteta would play, which is inverted fullbacks playing in midfield. I mean, this is a great opportunity for someone young. Although he's played over 100 games for Arsenal, he's still young, and he had that option. That's a position that he could make his own. I don't see him cementing a place in Arsenal midfield. If he was that good, he would have been playing in midfield, but he's clearly not. So, he had that option, but he's not taken it. And for whatever reason, he's basically pissed Arteta off. And, Arteta he said in his interview also, right? Some things are non-negotiable. So if you don't
Yeah.
play for the team and if you're not going to be serious, then you're going to be taken to task. And that seems to have that's what's happened with him apparently. But that being said, Bellerin, big injury, so maybe this time off does some good for him as well. We've seen pictures of him back in training. For me, him also, it's a this season is sort of a pass for him as well, and he has to prove his worth next season. Otherwise, I don't think he's going to make it at Arsenal. Bellerin.
Is Rohan, is Suarez going to give him the competition that he needs?
He was second choice at Southampton. Why should he be first choice at Arsenal? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I just worry a little bit in that position that Hector Bellerin's kind of getting the free pass again. I think he's one of these players. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to be on record as saying is lacking a winning mentality for me, and I just don't think he's Hector Bellerin. Yes, Dad. I don't think he's up to the task.
Well, I just had to go. I had to go and protect the missus from a bee. This is my accent. I got called to fight a bee, but
Your credits in the bank there.
So Stan doesn't lack any fight and leadership.
So look, here's the thing, right? I'm really surprised that Hector is getting a lot of grief these days. I don't know. I seem to be in a minority here. Like you just said a moment ago about him lacking leadership. I can't remember what game it was. It was when he was coming into games and out because he had a bit of a niggle. And I think it was one of the games he came back and I think he was the captain for the game. And I thought he had a great game. And I've always said for me that he may have lost a little bit of pace, but I think he's Arsenal through and through. But his biggest problem for me is that when he doesn't have competition, he went through so long of having no competition. And he knew that if he was fit, even if he wasn't 100% and he was maybe 80% fit, he was going to be playing at right back. And I think his game suffered a bit. When Ainsley Maitland-Niles was getting quite a big shout, and he was coming in to sort of maybe coming on as a substitute, and he was playing so well. When we had Debussy, he was threatening his place. He upped his game. If we can bring someone in, another right back in, I don't know if this Suarez is the right guy because I don't know much about him. And as Rohan said, if he's a number 2 at Southampton, I'd be a little bit wary that he could be the number 1 at Arsenal. But if we did bring in somebody who could fight for the first place, and I'll pull a name out of the air, maybe someone like Yusuf Attal or even Max Aarons, which is popular among the Arsenal fan base, you would have 2 people, I think, be fighting it out for that place, and it would raise Hector's game. I actually would go as far as to say that I think Hector Bellerin should be the captain at Arsenal, but that's just my opinion.
I've actually said that last season, but I've changed my mind on that. When we had shouts for Socrates to be captain, I was thinking Bellerin even last season when we had the famous 5 captains. But I don't see the hunger inside of him. I think he's there. He likes playing at Arsenal, and he's that type of player that is happy to get 5th, 6th, 7th spot and doesn't want to push.
I mean, when they were discussing the players' pay cut, it wasn't Aubameyang, the captain, who was kind of in between the players and the management. It was Hector Bellerin.
Yes.
Now, I do think that he's a good ambassador for the club. He's been with us for so long now. We got him from Barcelona at such a young age. Yeah, he has had some patches where his form hasn't been great. But as I say, I truly believe that if he realised that his place was up, it was in jeopardy, you'd see a better Hector Bellerin.
Yeah, that remains to be seen. And I think you used the word ambassador. He is a good ambassador for the club, no question. I'm just wondering if he is the best player that we could have in that position.
The man behind me says no.
We're going to get to Tony in a second.
Noisy neighbour.
Noisy neighbour. Knock on the ceiling.
Keep it down.
Knock on his floors. Rohan.
Yeah. So I think you said a very important thing, that he seems to be the guy who's okay with being fifth, sixth, seventh, right? And this is rant time. Now, what I'm tired of hearing from Arsenal players or ex-Arsenal players, whenever they come to the club, they are at the club, they say that, we are here for the team and we want to win, we want to do X, Y, Z, and then they leave, and all of them turn around and say Arsenal was an easy place. Arsenal lacks that winning mentality. You don't have to win for the title. I'll tell you right off the top of my head, I can think of three players who have recently said that. Pedacek said it when he left. When he was
Yeah.
here, he was captain, and then he goes out like a snake and says that Arsenal lacked the mentality, and that he thought it was easy at Arsenal. So why wasn't he raising the bar?
Yeah.
He was also the one who was like shit. After that, it was Ramsey. Ramsey is now gone to Juventus, and he says the level of training is something else, the intensity is something else. At Arsenal, people are just happy, being passengers, and whatever that. And then Van Persie, Master Snake, basically comes out and says that Manchester United are a beast of a club, and then at Arsenal's a big club, but at Manchester United you demand to win, and things like that. And I'm just sick of players saying things like that after leaving. Why don't they make an impact when they are here?
Yeah.
You're part of the problem, right? Like when you speak like that, just because you moved on and you've gone to a team that wins things and you maybe won something, doesn't mean like you are a passenger. Those other players are the ones who are carrying you. You aren't carrying anyone. Otherwise, you would have done it at Arsenal.
Yeah. And it all started with Ashley Cole as well, way back in 2006.
Can I
So
just
we
say
have-
that when
Yep.
these players that have left, and there are a few of them that have said that, and Rohan is right. They talk about, it was a bit of basically a holiday camp, right? A Butlins holiday camp at Arsenal. But
Yeah.
I believe that when those players have said that, training at Arsenal, and now that I'm at this club, I've seen that at Arsenal it was this and that. I think they're being very polite, and they're swapping out the word Arsene Wenger for Arsenal. And I think that what they're actually talking about when they say the training at Arsenal, this at Arsenal, they're actually talking about Arsene Wenger.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah, we've gone as a club where we saw this story recently where Arsene Wenger would hide in the bushes because the training sessions were so intense. You trained like you actually played on the Sunday or the Saturday at the time. See, we're so freaking used to talking about Sunday as well. When we used to play Saturday, we didn't play Sunday because of the damn Europa League. Now we're in a situation where they drive in their cars and it's like a Butlins, like you said, Stan.
Because some of the players that I've noticed as well that have made those kind of comments are players that were under the Wenger era, but they were post the kind of Tony Adams, David Seaman, Keown. If you read Lauren's article that I sent you guys, that was in the Guardian, he kind of straddled those two eras, didn't he? If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He kind of had one foot in the Wenger era where it was with the Adams, and he kind of had the other foot where that was kind of winding down. He kind of straddled it, and by his account, at that time, things in training were still pretty tough.
Yeah.
The way he said it, and I think that after we lost some certain characters, Arsene Wenger, he's spending, the sort of characters that he brought in, great technical players, some very good technical players, but we never brought any dominators in. There were players that were kind of, you have to put your arm around them all the time to get them to express themselves.
Smaller midfielders, nippy, gifted, technically gifted, but we're not probably up for the stomach of a Premier League game in November where it's piss and rain,
And that's why you'd always hear it as well. Not only would you hear like Rohan pointed out, these players that will say these things at the same sort of time, players that played for other teams will always say, we knew what we had to do to get in and amongst Arsenal. If we could get in there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was listening to something recently, that 4-4 game against Newcastle is a great example of how you dominate Arsenal. The first half, when we were 4-0 up, is because we had it our own way. They allowed us to do what we wanted to do and to play that Wenger ball. I don't know what they said to them at half time, but it bloody well worked, didn't it? Because they came out and they totally didn't let us play. And that was the secret to beating Arsenal.
And Lombard Campus said, if we're in the Europa League next season, I'm gonna cry. I'd rather come 12th. And there's a lot of this. We could push for that if things go well for us in these 10 games, and it's gonna be tough. Maybe playing, like we said before, there's not so much emphasis playing away from home as home because everything's behind closed doors. We technically have 4 home games and 6 away games, but that may not be the issue. We need to push for that Champions League spot, or a lot of fans want to be outside and have a rebuilding season. You know. But Tony, I gather you're not sweet on Hector Bellerin at right back.
And I think he's the prime example of a weak-minded player we've had for the last decade.
All right, Tony, do I push in the midfield with you and talk about that player, or do I go to the right wing? You get a choice. You
right,
want to talk about Xhaka or Pepe?
Pepe.
Because you go X-rated when it's Xhaka.
From Stan's
okay. The situation with Pepe was when Arteta came in, let's cast our minds back to Christmas. He thought he had an attitude problem, and Reece Nelson was playing quite a few games over that Christmas period. Actually, Pepe didn't get into the team until the 3rd game, which was the Man United game at home, where he did show his quality. But up until then, it was Reece Nelson who had been playing games. And this is Arteta setting the standard and setting out that call to all of the rest of the squad. If you don't train properly, you're not going to be in the team. Rohan?
Yeah, all 3 minutes. Pepe.
Yeah. So Rohan, Arteta setting the standards here. Pepe didn't get into the team until the 3rd game under Mikel Arteta, the Man United game.
Yeah, sure, and that's great. But you know, it's about man management, getting to make sure what's the strength of these players and what are the weaknesses, getting the best out of them. Because right now on the right hand side, Pepe is our guy, right? Like, and I think he's a good player. He just holds on to the ball for too long, but
Yeah.
you know, I think he has potential. I'm excited to see him. You know, 1 year into the Premier League, I'm hopeful that he's going to be doing great things. And you know, he showed in that Man United game. He was immense in that first half, right? Scoring a goal, hitting the post. You know, just putting Luke Shaw on the floor. So this whole thing, you know, he's the guy to lead us forward. You know, unfortunately, Reece Nelson, it just doesn't sort of work out for him in the box, and you know, I'm not really sure. I was excited to see him come back, but he hasn't excited me this year whenever I've seen him play.
Yeah. Stan, definite attitude problems in training with Pepe, identified by Arteta. And I think he dealt with it in the right way. Kept him out of the team for the first 2 games. And I think we were just talking on the last podcast about Pepe's impact against Man United.
I think if you're talking about, that position over on the right-hand side of the midfield, if you're comparing Nicola Pepe and Reece Nelson, I think technically maybe Pepe is the better player.
Yeah.
I think we did overpay for him, and because of that, the expectation is high. You know, we're expecting this Super Mario guy on the right wing, this 72 million. But I do think that we did overpay for him, merely because of the kind of agents that were involved. What I believe is going on here is, with Mikel Arteta, is the way that Reece Nelson plays on the right-hand side is the way that Mikel Arteta likes a player to play in that position.
Yes.
But the difference is that Nicolas Pepe is the better player.
Yeah.
Costs more. So
Nicolas Pepe has more talent.
Yeah. But the problem that we've got here is that I don't see how Nicolas Pepe is ever going to play in that style on the right-hand side, because he's so left-footed. In order for him to stay on the byline and take it around the player and run up the byline, what is he going to do when he gets to the byline? He ain't going to be able to cross. Yeah. Because as we've seen, his right foot is so limited, really limited. Do you know what I mean? His option is, no matter how high he gets up the byline, at some point he's going to have to try and cut in if he's going for goal, or maybe do a backward pass to a player that's coming in. And it is very predictable. And I'd like to think that there's been some experiment in that. We've never really seen him play on the left wing, but if he's such a left-sided player, can't he, switch wings during games? Give the opposition something to think about. All of a sudden, Nicolas Pepe is popping up on the left-hand side, and instead of trying to cut in, he's crossing the ball on his left foot. Or maybe he can't cross in his left, but I've seen him cross infield. I've seen him do an assist where he sort of scooped the ball. It was like a scooped pass, and I think it was Aubameyang headed the ball in.
Aubameyang.
Yeah. So that's what I think the problem is. I think in Mikel Arteta's world, he would like someone of the technical ability of Pepe to play in the style of Reece Nelson.
Yeah, I think definitely that's a great point. Tony, what are you expecting from Pepe after having this time off? He may have settled in a little bit more, and he may be ready. Although I think he may, personally, I think he's going to have the benefit of settling into the UK a little bit more and being ready. We're talking about this as a mini preseason. That's what it really is. And we're ready to go again. 10 more games in the Premier League, Tony.
Yeah, he seemed relaxed interview with him and Lacazette. I think he's had more time to adjust to life there in London and should have a ground running. At least hopefully he does.
Rohan, we're going to get into midfield now. I mentioned Bernd Leno and David Luiz are mainstays in the team. They're always in the team. There is another player in midfield that we know about that is a mainstay in midfield. 4 managers has consistently picked this player, Granit Xhaka, and it seems like until I don't even think if we get Partey, I don't even think that Xhaka will be on the bench. I think that he would pair Partey with Granit Xhaka.
That's true, and my feelings about Granit Xhaka, I feel that amongst the bunch of softies that we have, in which we have to choose Bellerin as the captain and ambassador, he has more character. In my opinion, he is the guy who has character and who has the fight.
Granit Xhaka.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about after Watford, what he said. We were scared.
He said that, but it was a collective we and not the royal we, right? I would assume he's not talking about himself. He's talking about the collective, which is not incorrect. These guys are a bunch of scaredy cats, right? So that's what happened, and that's not the right message to go out. But the other message is someone like Czech who says that that we're all working hard and towards it, and then later says something else, right? So that's one interview. I have seen him during matches trying to rile the team up and trying to stand up against the opposition, and he's done that. But that being said, he's an awful player in a vital position.
I thought you were bigging him up there for a second.
No. His quality doesn't help us because he's a shit player. That's his issue. like I said, if the rule of the game was that he could have 10 seconds on the ball and nobody closes down, he would be the best player in the Premier League. He'd be the Xabi Alonso of
Yeah, yeah,
2019, 2020. But he is actually the Xabi Alonso of 2020. 2020 being the year, he's the shit Xabi Alonso that 2020 has thrown us.
and Lumberg says, Lumberg camp, most of our players are an absolute disgrace. We're going to need a few windows to weed these guys out. But even if even if Partey is coming, I believe Xhaka is going to be paired with him.
Here's the thing when I think about Xhaka. I mean, you got to think of the managers at Arsenal that he's been under now. For some reason, they all rate Xhaka. Do you know what I mean? They all have him in the team. And they know much more about football than me. I'm just a geezer living in Vancouver from Peckham who talks about football. And it's just opinions. I can't coach. I've never trained a squad. I can't even play football. I mean, I'm unfit. I'm rubbish in goal, right? I'm an armchair manager. That's what I am, right? I know nothing. But I don't understand it with Xhaka. I really, do you know what I mean? I just don't get the fascination with him. I don't. And let's take away, the stuff when he got substituted and he told everyone to do one or whatever, in stronger words or whatever. Before that, I never rated Xhaka, right? And I used to go out to the pub when I first moved over here, and I started going out with my mate Mike. I was always like talking about Xhaka, and after about 3 games in watching it together, he looked at me one day and he goes, "You know what, Stan?" He goes, "You're right. This guy's awful because I'm done with him." He goes, "This guy is just totally off the ball. He slows the game down." And I said, "Exactly." But for some reason, the managers seem to love him. And I just say this: I know it's not Football Manager, but apparently Hertha Berlin offered us 40 million euros for him. And Thomas Partey's got a buyout clause. Was it 50, 55 million?
42.
Surely we could have looked under the sofa and found the change to add on to the Hertha Berlin and done something there. So I don't get it. And my worry is if we do bring in someone like a Partey, it's going to be Lucas Torreira that misses out.
Yes.
I mean, and the guy's just spent like lockdown beefing himself up to a ras, man. And you've seen him. The guy's like a little Hulk, so he's obviously trying. So I don't understand what's going there. At an outside bet, and when I go to sleep at night, this is what I hope and pray, that all the things that Mikel Arteta is saying about Xhaka, that he's just trolling him until the window opens and he can kick him out. But until then, he's got to keep him on side and sell the nice thing just to keep him on side. That's what I'm hoping, but I'm not so sure.
Let's get away from Xhaka. I won't even ask Tony.
Tony, that won't be too difficult.
Tony, if you have a C word to describe Xhaka, I'm thinking charismatic.
Snail could get away from Xhaka.
If there's a C word, Tony, if there's a C word to describe Granit Xhaka, I'm saying charismatic. What are you saying?
Complacent.
Complacent. There you go. Good one. Keeping it clean. Let's get to the left back. So Tierney is the long-term left back for Arsenal, and Saka will be the left winger.
But is he? Because just today again, right? And I know it's, pandemic. There's no football. Journalists have got to get the clicks. But that story again about Tierney being, that Leicester are going to come in and take Tierney. Obviously, I get the links, right? He's played under Brendan Rodgers. So there's your link. But, I mean, surely the world has not gone that mad where we're going to spend 25 million on a left back. He's played what? Is it 11 games? 6 of them he started? Something like that. A handful of games, not even a dozen. And we're considering what? To sell him?
Yeah.
I don't believe that. I mean, I
don't believe it either.
I can't believe it. If it does happen, then it really is. We are playing Football Manager. We really are.
The players on our left side, Martinelli, Saka, and Tierney, are the players that we should be building this club on in the coming years. But Bellerin, Lumberg Camp has summarized the podcast so far. Bellerin's scared of winning. So if you missed everything up until this point, this is what we've been talking about. Bellerin's scared of winning. Xhaka is slow. Told the fans to F off. Niles doesn't want to play right back. Laka, we're going to get into Lacazette. He can't hit a barn door. Ozil, 350 for a couple of sideways passes. And Pereira wants to play for Boca. There you go. Good summary of what's happened so far. Norma, thanks for joining us. If Leicester won Tierney, I would prefer a swap deal. Tierney for Ndidi plus cash. Yeah, but I wouldn't agree with that, but selling him. But if you're going to get a player, these are swap deals that could happen. I don't think it's going to happen. You know, Saka, Rohan, say something nice about Saka.
I love Saka. I feel when he scored his first goal, which was I think in the Europa League, he scored a curler, right? And I said like, who's Salah? Who needs Salah when you have Saka? So I was bigging him up, and he's proved everyone right that he's got assists in double digits now. He scores goals. He's played in a position that he hasn't played in before. He hasn't thrown attitude. He has kept his head down. He's played well. All he needs to do is sign the contract, and I feel that he has big things going on for him in the future. Him and Martinelli on the left side. I'm excited.
Yeah. Reason for hope, like we said, we've got Tierney, Saka, and Martinelli. And Lumbercamp would take that swap for Tierney for Ndidi.
Nope.
I don't think it's going to happen personally. We've had a lot of newspaper talk, and we're not going to talk any more transfer stuff.
Let me just say, right, the reason that I'm so hot on Tierney, let me put my cards on the table, right? It's because of my Scottish background. I love the fact that we've got a Scottish guy in our team, and that's what it is. And I think it's an important position, and I actually think that he's the sort of guy that if we could keep him around, I think he's got captain material about him because he's a good talker. He's a very good talker. But what I'd like to see happen at that left back position is if I was in control of what we were doing, obviously I think Tierney should be our number 3, right, left back position. But what I would do is, now that I've had time to think about it, I would bring in that Layvin Kurzawa from PSG on a free transfer, and then I would sell Kolasinac, because we've got Kolasinac for free. If we sell him for say 20, maybe 25 million euros, the wages are kind of transferred over to Kurzawa. That is a self-sustaining model, which is what we've been told that we are. That's just 25. The 25 that we've spent on Tierney, that's back in the deal.
It generates some cash as well. December, thanks for joining us. He said that Saliba was wanted by Real Madrid, and I believe in this kid. I don't try not to big up him too much. He's 19, and people are warning against having him come in and be a prime Maldini or something like that. I actually believe he can do a very decent job for us, and I'm bigging him up a little bit. There's so much wrong in this team. You gotta have hope, right?
Well, just speaking of Real Madrid, there. That article that I was reading about Lauren, I didn't know this, but apparently before he came to Arsenal, he sat down and had talks with Real Madrid. Yeah. And he said that, but the way that they negotiated, it was kind of like, this is what I'm paying you, this is the position, this is what it is. There's no negotiation. You either like what we put on the table or you can do one. And you said, no, I didn't like that. I didn't like that way of doing my negotiations. So, he could have been a Real Madrid player ahead of coming to Arsenal, which is, I think, it's a good thing to know.
Yeah, Lumbercamp agrees with you, Stan. That's what Arsenal would do if they actually had a clue of what assets are and how to run a business. And,
actually, we've got 2 assets that we can sell. One is Kolasinac, whom we got for free, and then the other one is Colonel Mustard, right? Like he'll fetch some money, and these 2 players, if we sell, we could probably fund part A from that money.
Okay, let's get into Lacazette. He's another asset, believe it or not. Swap or sell. And clearly, Lacazette has struggled this season. Um, Looking at the goals under Arteta, Aubameyang has scored 7 out of 23 goals that we've scored under Arteta. That's 30%. 30% of our goals are coming from our striker, who we hope will actually stay with the club. We're going to see what happens there. Lacazette has had 3 goals under Arteta. Again, he had a tough time. He was taken out of the team. And when he came back, he scored a couple of goals. We all remember the one against Newcastle. It was a miss hit, but it went in. And I might lose a bet based on that miss hit. But irrespective. And then he came off the bench for the last game of the season so far against West Ham and scored what I'm calling the VAR goal. Well, Lacazette, let's talk about Lacazette. He hasn't been able to hit a barn door to steal Nürnberg Camp's praise. Dan?
Sorry, was that me?
Yep.
Yeah, well, anyone, whoever wants it.
When I knew that we were buying Lacazette, I was pretty excited. I was already aware of him, and even a couple of years before that, you know, I would sort of like tinker about him on FIFA, you know, like you do. And you know, when you get an affinity with someone, you think, yeah, I quite like this guy, even though you don't know him, right? But you kind of have this like affinity. So when I heard the news that we were linked to this guy, I was excited that he was coming in. I wasn't against it at all. And again, you know, and it was all with the wish in the world for him to do really well. And it's a big deal giving someone the number 9 shirt as well. You know, a number 9 shirt says goals. You are the main goal man in the team. That's what I always recognise it as. But the truth of the matter is, and I'm not having a dig, from the numbers that he's put up that we've had him, we may as well have just stuck with Oliver Giroud. Oliver Giroud and Alexander Lacazette, they put up the same amount of numbers. Now, maybe there's an argument that they maybe do the goals in bigger games or smaller games. I've not looked into that. But if you look at the costs that we bought for Oliver Giroud, I know it was a few years earlier, there's a huge difference, right? One was like 17 million, I believe, Giroud. Lacazette was up at 50 million. And you're getting the same numbers.
I think we got through for 12 million.
It's not really worked out for me. As much as I really wanted him to do well, exactly like when we bought Mesut Ozil, I was over the moon and had all of the best will in the world. But for me, as we're talking about swaps and selling, 2 ways I would go. If there's a swap deal available for Partey, obviously I'd like that to happen because we definitely need something better in that part of the pitch. And I've got to agree. I've got to admit, I've never watched a lot of Thomas Partey's games, but I enjoy what the stories that I'm hearing, and we need someone for that position. So I'd be willing to try that. Otherwise, if we've got cash for Lacazette, I still think that whether we swap him for Partey or sell him, we would still need to bring in another forward to cover ourselves. And I think that my main man, Odeson Edouard from Celtic, who I've been talking about, would be gettable. It would be probably a little bit more expensive than Tierney, maybe 30 to 35 million euros from Celtic. And they really rate this kid. They say that he's the best striker they've had since Henrik Larsson. And I've seen him play a lot. As I've said, we shared a pub here in Vancouver, the Celtic Supporters Club, and I've seen him play. And I think the player himself would probably consider it as a step up. So it would tick all of the right boxes. That's what I would do with Lacazette right now. One of those 2 options. Swap with Partey or sell, get the money, bring in Odeson Edouard.
Yeah, Rowan, we're seeing a situation where Timo Werner, Chelsea are going after Timo Werner. And Norma has put together a nice cascade of transfers. Swap Laka for Partey, sell Aubameyang and hijack Chelsea transfer by Werner through his release clause. But I definitely would go for the first part of that. Swap Lacazette for Partey.
So I'm just smiling because I know what's going around in Rohan's head right now.
I'm going poke.
I know that. I know that. So, but I don't think anybody disagrees with the fact that Lacazette and Partey swap would be a win for us. Like Stan said, even I liked Lacazette, and I still do. I think he's a great player, but he's a confidence player, and he's just not going to get that confidence as at Arsenal because we're a team in the dumps. So how do we give him confidence when the whole team is underconfident? But we look for a number nine to give us that confidence because goals win you games, right? So he's not doing that. He has some value. Get get some value for him.
Yep.
As far as
Yeah,
Aubameyang is concerned,
yeah,
and I don't know if we're talking about him, but still, since that was brought up, you know, he is the guy who guarantees goals. I will not stress enough how much I
yeah.
want him to stay.
I said,
But today, when I read and I sent this out to you guys on that message, private message, that if he is going and if we know and if we allow Chelsea to get Timo Werner for 49 million, that'll be like a big mistake. That's like a
yeah,
punishable mistake by us
yeah,
because you can tell me that he's 30, turning 31 or whatever. He has 1 year left, but he will fetch us, say, around 40 million. And then again, selling these guys, Kolasinac, Colonel Mustard, Lacazette, all of these guys, it's going to give us enough money to be able to afford. I do not want to go into next season with a completely new striker who's not up to the mark or depending on Nketiah. I don't want to do that.
yeah.
So it's
I
it's just as
just
clear
love,
as that.
I
It's
just
just
love the
depressing.
way, I just love the way Colonel Mustard has stuck on this channel, and we just roll with it. I love it.
Well,
Uh,
I would say as well, it's just our bloody luck that we've got all of these players and a lot of them in key positions whose contracts have a year to go, and it's happening when the transfer market and with what's happening in the world is the way it is. It's
yeah.
it's
Oh,
really
Arsenal.
not good timing for us at the moment with contracts and transfers at all.
No,
Because if we do have to get rid of Aubameyang, and a decision has to be made, we're going to get a fraction of what the going market price was. That's the criminal thing.
yeah,
And then we've got to hope that the people behind the scenes are able to get a replacement and get a good price for that replacement. Do you know what I mean?
no.
And
It's terrible timing, really. Yeah.
But
Um,
49 for Werner itself is super low. I was thinking that he'll go above 100 million. So
yeah,
if that is indeed true, so if
that is
we
low.
sell Aubameyang for less, we could assume that we're going to get somebody else for less as well. And Werner would have been like a great shout if Aubameyang is to go. But I don't even think that should be an option. I am just hoping that Arsenal has looked into this, and because you get stories to what you want to believe in, right? It's an echo chamber, and in our group we see that, like we post whatever our views are, and we've seen Aubameyang in talks with Arteta. Arteta has personally taken on himself that he's going to convince Arteta to stay, convince Aubameyang to stay,
Aubameyang,
and
yeah.
then the next article is that Aubameyang has never seen a contract at Arsenal. Like he's already gone or something like that. Like
Here's the annoying thing, right? I mean, already, right, before next season has started and the transfer window has opened, Chelsea have now signed two players, two very good players,
oh
right?
yeah,
Yeah, they've signed Ziyech now already. That's was done. Remember, we forgot about that. Ziyech was done
No,
8 months ago.
I was right.
Bag, done. And now, if the rumours are true, they've gone and got Timo Werner at cut price. Meanwhile, you look at Arsenal, and it's Arsenal are looking at, Arsenal are interested in, Arsenal are speaking to, and the two players that I think that are right up there that we really could do with, Upamecano and Thomas Partey. The ironic thing is, both of those players have a buyout clause. Chelsea
Yeah.
have got two players, and we're pussyfooting around with two players that have buyout clauses. Either get it done, or just tell us what's going on for real. Do you know what I mean?
I was thinking of this as well, Stan, today. Spurs and Arsenal had managerial coach vacancies around about the end of November, early December. Spurs went out and filled that vacancy first. But did they get the right candidate? This is what I'm clinging to a little bit. Arsenal took their time, and I believe they got the right candidate 3 or 4 weeks later. Can you cling to that in terms of transfers as well?
Sorry, I didn't get all of that, right? Sorry, I didn't.
Um, Arsenal and Spurs had the same coaching vacancies in the beginning of December.
Okay.
They went out and got Mourinho. We waited and took our time and got the right guy, in my opinion.
It's just because we waited, but the only reason we waited was because obviously internally they weren't on the same page. Yeah, it's come out, right, that they wanted to, that Raul wanted to increase Emery's contract after all of everything that had happened, because he just wanted to justify his position because it was his appointment.
Yeah.
You know, so he wants to.
He's
I mean, people are talking about the board and that, but it's obvious to me that it's not on an even keel. You know, the way that it was presented to us with this board when, you know, Wenger was leaving and sort of Ivan was kind of doing all the speaking, you know, Sven Mislintat was brought in. We were talking about being a self-sustaining model, that we've got to find these young diamonds in a similar way that Borussia Dortmund done things by finding young players, making them into names, selling them on, reinvesting. And that's just not happened. It's just not happened. You know, as soon as Ivan left, Raul made a dash for the fucking big chair, man, big time. He's now Raul Sanelli is our technical, what is he, head of football. The head of football. He's not director of football, a head of contracts. He's the head of it.
Yeah.
He's not even probably kicked a ball in his life.
Years.
I mean, he's the head of football. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the Arsenal are leading us to no decent signings. Seen this before from the assembled. Yeah.
And just to finish, so I don't want to hog it. I just want to say, and to finish it, we've gone from this self-sustaining model and diamond eyes and looking for these young gems and that, to talking to all of the super agents and just saying like, who have you got that we could have? Oh yeah, we'll take him. Whether we need someone for that position, whether they've got the right attributes that we're looking for, it's worrying.
Yeah.
It's worrying.
And Nketiah will give us more goals than Lacazette. His confidence has been destroyed. Lacazette's confidence has been destroyed. I think Nketiah he may not be the striker we all want, but I think he would be a good stand-in striker, and he's shown that. Lumbercamp, if Ancelotti came in after Wenger, we bought the same player, we'd be in the Champions League competing now. If we bought the same players. So, so it's blatantly obvious. Aubameyang, like you said, Rohan, has got 30% of our goals. You can see on the ticker tape below, Arteta's had 15 games. He won 8 of them in all competitions, drawn 5 and lost 2. 23 goals, 4 and 12 against. And I think he's dramatically improved us defensively. And we had been on course for shipping a lot of goals. In 2018, 2019, we conceded 51 goals. And up until this present time, we've conceded 36 goals. So that's improvement with 10 games to come yet.
We're like somehow trying to desperately find some positivity and like concede 36 goals and that's bad. You know what? How many have Liverpool conceded? Like, I mean, they'll be somewhere in the low 20s.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the difference, right? And
And,
you know, you just
20,
reminded me.
in 28 games, we conceded 26
Reminded me.
goals.
Right. And you know, you've also reminded me of when Arteta came in. He said that I don't want to set, you know, expect myself or you know, landmarks, milestones
Yeah,
from
expectations. Yeah,
myself. But when Klopp had come in, he had said that I I want to win the Premier League in the next 4 years, and if I don't, I'm going to manage somewhere in Switzerland. And he didn't win it in his 4th year, but this is his 5th year,
Yeah.
and he will win it now.
Yeah.
So
And he
he
does
hasn't said
manage
something
it as
like that.
well. And would have
He
won it
hasn't said
last
something like
season,
that.
but for Manchester City doing extremely well to beat them by 1 point. Tony,
Exactly.
Tony, it's obvious that Lacazette, Aubameyang scored 7 goals, and after that we got Nketiah, Martinelli, and this is just under Arteta's reign. 3 goals for Nketiah, 2 for Martinelli, 3 for Laka, 2 for Pepe. So Aubameyang's got 7 goals, while the nearest to him is 3 goals in Lacazette and Nketiah. The supporting cast needs to do better.
It doesn't help where Arteta's been playing Lacazette really.
Yeah, well, this is one thing I wanted to talk to you about, Tony. Everyone has seen that heat map with Lacazette. Under Emery, he was a lot more in the box. But Arteta, he seems to be used a lot more in midfield, which is taking him out of the danger areas, and he's not scoring goals.
He almost directly on the midfield.
Is it because our midfield is just so crap that Lacazette's had to help out there?
Yeah, I think it's because Ozil and everybody else has dropped the ball there. Lacazette's had to play deep.
Stan, would you cut Lacazette a break, given that his heat map is outside of the box now?
Well, let me ask the panel a question, and I'd like to ask the guys, Lumbo, Camp, the Assembled, Norma.
Yeah.
Let's forget this season, right? We've had the transfer window. We've brought in some people. We don't know who they are. We're lining up now for the first game of next season. Are you going to be happy if Lacazette is starting? I don't know if you heard this, Rohan, because I'd like you to answer as well. I'm just asking you guys, right? We've had the transfer window. We brought in people. We don't know who they are, but it's the first game of next season. Are you going to be happy if we start next season with Lacazette playing as the lone striker, and on the left-hand side, we've got Aubameyang, instead of Aubameyang playing up front with either Martinelli or Saka playing on that left-hand side? I want Aubameyang with one of those two to help him come through. And I want Laka, if we've still got him in the squad, on the bench to come on and try and fight his way back in. That's what I'd like. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
I see our front three as being Aubameyang, Pepe, and Martinelli long term. And I agree with you, Stan. I would not be happy with Lacazette continuing in that central striking role and putting up numbers that he's done in the last 2 seasons. Rohan?
And that's again the same thing, right? 56 million for Lacazette. He's too expensive to be put on the bench for a team like Arsenal, which is a self-sustaining team, right? We still have value from him. He's going to otherwise lead us into that last year. And again, we'll have the same debacle if he's not playing. Yeah. So rather than that, sell him for cash. I do not want to see Aubameyang on the left. It's wasted. Now that the years are rolling on and he's on the wrong side 30, he needs to conserve that energy and play within the width of the box. And, that's where he's going to be most effective. I don't want to see him near our corner flag. I don't want to see him play 1-2 with our center back. That's not his job. That's not what he should do. And if he does play as left back, as left wing, that's going to just hinder Martinelli and Saka, who I want both of them to play about 25-30 games next season each. And the only way that can be done is by having Aubameyang playing there. I would love to have Lacazette on the bench and have the confidence up, maybe a couple of goals up, get Lacazette in, or things like that. But we're not a Man City who can play Aguero and have Jesus on the bench, right? So we have to be prudent there.
And Tony?
I'd like to see either a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2 with Uba and Lacazette both up front.
Yeah.
And Pepe on the right and Saka on the left.
All right, Tony. So you would switch the formation to accommodate Lacazette.
We agree. Me and my noisy neighbour agree big time on that. I'm not sure about the three.
We have a
I'm
first.
not sure about the three at the back because I'm with Tony. I want to see us work in a formation with two of them up front and see how it works. Two strikers, whether it's Aubameyang and Laka, Aubameyang and Nketiah. But my fear is if we go with the three at the back and the wing backs, then we can't play wingers. You know, we can't have Pepe on the right. We can't have a Martinelli or a Saka on the left.
And we have literally no creativity in the middle of the park.
But can I just say as well, can I just say that, you know, we're talking about Aubameyang and, you know, they're trying to get him to sign a contract. And do you reckon they may be dangling the carrot as a little caveat of assuring him of a position to play up front? We know that him and Lacazette are good mates. They get on. They love each other's company. But as an individual player, you know, do you think that maybe he's like, okay, I want to play up front. I'm a striker. And maybe the club is maybe saying to him, you know, sign the contract, sign the team, as they say on Twitter, sign the team, and we'll play you as the 9.
And you know what? He's getting into the final years of his career as well, Stan. He's not going to be able to run up and down the wing and do all of that hard grafting that he's required to do playing on the left-hand side. So he's going to want to play centrally.
Because I thought about our team earlier, and I've been thinking about all the stuff I've been seeing on Twitter. In our kind of sort of starting 11, starting 12, a few on the bench, I can only think of 2, maybe 3 players that haven't been rumoured to either be being sold by Arsenal or aren't going to sign a contract or are going to leave from the whole team. And the 3 players are Leno is the only one that I've not heard transfer talk about.
Yeah.
The other one is Nicolas Pepe, and the other one is Martinelli. Every other player has. I've heard a story about them either leaving.
I've heard Madrid for Martinelli as well. I've heard Real Madrid.
Oh, really? Well, there you go. Then that's another one. Then But every player, maybe apart from 2. When was the last time we heard that in about the whole team? You know, that's everyone's either wants to leave or is going to be sold because we don't want them. It's, I reckon some of us could be turning out for Arsenal next season.
Play your boots. The assemble said, "Can you name the last time Arsenal had a decent central midfield pairing?" We're talking about 2006, probably, right? Lacazette. I actually like Cazorla and Coquelin. They played quite well in that season.
That was it.
If Cazorla had not gotten injured at West Brom, we could have actually gone on to be quite competitive that year in the league. Lacazette is a statement by, like Pepe, is no plan for the future.
We have too many players who are getting linked to either leave or want to get sold or whatever. These are too many players for the lack of quality that we have. I don't know how they just end up wanting to get sold, or because actually, just looking at it, Aubameyang is the only world-class player that we have. So, I don't know how that goes, but that's like royal mismanagement of the club, So that's the state of affairs.
When was the last time when you looked at Arsenal and there's only really one world-class player in the team? Mm-hmm. I've got no attachment, and I know a lot of other Arsenal fans have hardly any attachment to hardly any players in the team. And just like Rohan said, and you might have missed this, Rohan, when you was just off a second ago, there's only 2 players in the squad that I've not heard talks about either leaving, being sold, or what have you. It's a very strange time.
Yeah. Very strange time.
But what you did say, and I found it super funny, was that this will be the story of the ultimate betrayal if Aubameyang is being like super friendly with Lacazette and posting things on his birthday and stuff, and then going behind his back and being like, "I want to play number 9. Get this guy out of the club.
Get the teaser out of here." Right. The other thing, any of you noticed any observations during Arteta's time? Here's one I'll throw out at you for an example. Aubameyang has scored more headers under Mikel Arteta than at any other point in his career, and he scored a header against Everton. He scored one against Chelsea as well, and I know he scored another headed goal against Newcastle. So 3 of those 7 goals at least have been headers. That's quite interesting, right, Stan?
Oh yeah, that's actually quite a good stat. That obviously the manager's helping bring that part into Aubameyang's game, right? And you know, we're just saying he's 30, 31, and that's a stat that's just improved. So you've got to applaud that, you know. But I think the one thing that that Mikel Arteta has, you know, added, which I think is an improvement, and it's not really a physical attribute, it's discipline. You know, we heard the stories about, you know, there was that period where Guendouzi wasn't really getting in the team. There's the stuff of Ainsley Maitland-Niles. There's things that have kicked off behind the scenes, and Mikel Arteta has not stood for it. And I think that maybe under I'm not going to really count Unai Emery, but maybe under Wenger, there may not have been as much as a punishment. But then again, in saying that, he moved Szczesny on for having a cheeky fag in the changing room. So, do you know what I mean? It's easy to come to assumptions. And I think sometimes that, just as we're talking about this, that I think sometimes that we have an image of Arsene Wenger maybe being a little bit softer than he actually was. Because I said to you on the last podcast about the Adebayor situation, right at the very last minute when we'd agreed a fee with Man United, Adebayor went to Arsene Wenger and said that maybe, you know, this was the wrong thing, that he doesn't want to move after all and he's regretting it. And Arsene Wenger was firm. He told him that, you know, we've gone past that now. Now that moment has gone. So maybe just talking there. So maybe he's not as soft as we think, if that makes any sense.
Aubameyang's played well. Lacazette's form has fell off since Aubameyang came. Interesting. Tony, have you noticed anything that you liked about Arteta? Anything you did not like? You know, and he's only 15 games into his career. Like we said at the start, let's not expect too much. Stan has said, let's come back in 18 months. I think it's completely reasonable to do that. Tony, have you noticed anything under Arteta?
His substitutions is the main negative thing I've found about him.
Yeah. He hasn't always used his substitutions, and we haven't always. We've not been coasting in games, so it's a little bit. When we can, I always think that, Stan, when fans can see what's going on, and you actually wonder if the coach can see the same thing or feel the same thing.
Well, he's going to have to get used to these substitutions because, you know, he's now going to have 5 with 9 on the bench, right? That's what they're saying. You're going to have 9 on the bench and you can make up to 5. And I have to say, I actually hope that rule stays after the virus. I really think that having more substitutions and increasing the bench will improve the game. You know, you can imagine if you're playing a game and, you know, you're 3-0 up and there's maybe 20 minutes to go, you may have some youngsters that were going to get those extra minutes that they wouldn't get. And it's a good way to make decisions quicker on whether a player is what you're looking for. Is this guy going to make it? You can make that decision quicker. So I'm actually pleased that I think out of the, I know I'm going off the beaten track, but this rule coming in with the substitutions and the bench could be one of the good things to come out of the change of football.
Yeah.
But you did ask me an original question, and I can't remember what that was. It was.
Doesn't matter. I'm surprised how few the German teams have used the 5 substitutions. Most of them have only been using 2 or 3 subs.
No, but what did I ask?
And I do, sorry, just what the assembled put about Aubameyang and Lacazette. Yeah. This is very un-Arsene Wenger as well, because when we bought Lacazette first, right? And do you remember, I think it was maybe in the window before that, there was talk and a lot of people were talking about Lacazette. And it almost looked like, I think Arsene Wenger I think it was when we bought Lucas Perez. Lacazette was mooted, and it kind of looked like that Wenger we needed a striker, and it looked like Wenger was going to take anyone except for Lacazette. When a lot of people, myself included, was favouring Lacazette. And then about 2 windows later, we brought in Lacazette, and then 6 months later, he went and spent another 50 million, another forward. And that always tells me that Wenger was probably never really convinced from Lacazette from the start. And something about him that he didn't quite fancy, right? And again, you know that Wenger favours French players, and there was something that he didn't obviously fancy there.
Yeah, I think Stan, at that time when we brought Aubameyang in, there was a power struggle going on, and Raul and Vinay wanted to make that public that they were going to Dortmund and they were going to bring
Ben Mislintat as well.
Yeah, and bring back this potent goal scorer. The assembled Wenger brought players that you understand what he was trying to do. What is our direction now? And I think we're going down the road of super agents right now. And like you said, Stan, it's not a cohesive, it's not a coherent plan. It's what players do you have on your books that we can get? And then, okay, Mikel, it's over to you to make it work. You know what I mean?
Whether you agreed with what Arsene Wenger was doing or not, at least you could see that there was something behind it. When he started buying these, as we mentioned before, especially in the midfield, these sort of technical players, a lot of attacking midfielders that he would even try to make play on the wings, for example. It might not have worked, but there was a method that he was trying. Whereas at the moment, it really is a feeling that, you know, if we need a central defender that's good at bringing the ball out from the back and has certain attributes, that's not how the purchase is being made. As you say, you know, we're ringing up these super agents and saying, you know, what's available? You know, what can we get? You know, that's not how we should be doing business. You know, and you know, if I walk into a brothel, I want to make my choice. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just being given what's free. You know, it's a weird analogy, but that's not the way that we should be doing it. And I don't believe that Mikel Arteta is going to be happy with that, because Mikel Arteta, he refers to himself a lot as the manager rather than the head coach. I don't know if you've noticed that. And if the stories are correct, he's decided for whatever reason that he needs to be involved to get the Aubameyang deal over the line. Not Hus Fahmy, who's our contracts guy. That's what he was hired for. Hus Fahmy is our contracts guy. Mikel Arteta is saying, no, I want to do this one. And I think that says a lot between the relationship and trust, maybe between Aubameyang and maybe people like Hus Fahmy, who they don't trust as the board people, and maybe he has more faith in dealing with Arteta. And if you think about it, that's the model that we were trying to get away from when Arsenal finished. We were trying to get away from this, you know, one person in charge of everything and everybody's got their own department. Yeah. So it's another example of what we've been told in the direction that the club is moving in. What we're actually seeing is a complete reverse. If anything, Mikel Arteta is, I'm not saying he's coming like an Arsene Wenger, but he's taking on more responsibilities other than being a head coach. You know, the remit is that a head coach is on the training pitch. He's doing all the stuff with the players, all the tactics and analysing the next games. But he's taking a little bit more on. And that was one of the reasons that Raul got rid of Arsene, but they're allowing it. So it's a lot of cross messaging. It's not clear.
It's in his best interest to whip the squad into shape and to make this squad be better. To achieve the goals that he's ambitious, and he's going to want to have the club match his ambitions. You know?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but what I'm saying is it's like, you know, one side is saying one thing, but then the other side is doing something else. It doesn't look like that we're on the same page. Do you know what I mean? Of how we're being told the club is going to be run, the structure, who does what. It's not what's happening.
I think they're waiting for this structure to kind of bed in and settle in and see how it works in a coherent.
I don't believe that. I mean, we've just lost the chairman of Arsenal, right, to Chips Creswick. Keswick, with his big cigar, sheepskin. He's gone. I don't see Arsenal appointing another chairman. Someone coming in, chairman. Don't see it happening.
Dan, put some respect on that name. Use his full name. It's Sir Chippendale Keswick.
Forgive me, Sir Chippendale.
Rohan.
I don't see another person coming in with this title of chairman. I think those days have gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The assembled Arsenal are scratching for players at the moment. Arsenal have a mix and match set up. And yeah. One other thing I noticed before we get on to the final segment here, I noticed that Granit Xhaka is being used to cover the left sided defensively. So he's allowing Saka to get forward. And
Center back too.
can we attribute, Tony, can we give Granit Xhaka some credit for Saka's season?
I think Granite's been best back there as center back or left back than he is in the midfield. It's where he needs to be staying at, simply.
And our midfield is absolutely atrocious. We've gotten not a lot of goals stand from our midfield.
Yeah, Xhaka's not a left back, so you can imagine. I'd like to imagine that the team talk went right. You know, both of our left backs can't play. We're going to have to put Saka in there. So Granit, it's up to you to help him out. Make sure that when he goes up the pitch, you slot in. I know it's a little bit extra, and I'm asking you to do a little bit more, but you've got to help him out. You've got to help the young kid out. When Kieran Tierney comes in, you don't need that. Because as much as people are going, I love the way Xhaka comes over, I'm like, yeah, but it's even a massive hole in the middle of our midfield. If the ball breaks off and there's a counter-attack, is Xhaka going to get back to cover? Yeah. And if you've got Kieran Tierney playing in there, you don't have to worry about that, because the thing is with Kieran Tierney, he's good going both ways. He can attack and cross the ball in, but at the end of the day, he is a defender. He's a defensive player. Xhaka, as good as he covered and stood in and understudied, that's all he did. You know, if you go to the theatre to see, a play at the West End, and you got Gielgud is playing, or Sir Laurence Olivier, and they're sick, and you get the understudy, you probably get a good performance, but it ain't the one. Do you know what I'm getting at? It was the understudy, and that's all Xhaka is. And yeah. Xhaka, I think that the fact that he stood in at left back so well and didn't complain about it and showed of how much of a team player he is, I think that he's actually earned the right to play in his position now, whereas Ainsley Maitland-Niles has not, because he's a moany, whingy, sulky child. And I said child instead of a bad word because my mum watches these podcasts.
Yeah. I want to say hi to Stan's mom as well. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching.
Hello, Mummy.
Sorry for getting a red card.
That was a nice moment. Okay, we coincidentally enough, there's a lot of parallels here. Manchester City is a parallel. Arteta. We had that's the first fixture back after the interrupted season, but we have played 10 Premier League games under Arteta, and we're going to play 10 Premier League games for the remainder of the season. You see where I'm coming from here? His record in the first 10 games is 1-4, drawn 5, and lost 1. That's 17 points. And can we improve on that in these next 10 games? Can we expect to improve on that, Stan?
I think he has to. And I think if you're Mikel Arteta, you're setting that challenge for yourself. Yeah. Because you're going to be judged. Because it's funny, it's equal numbers, right? And it's almost like he's had this weird luxury of having his season sort of split into two halves. It's almost like a game of football for him. He's had a first half, and now we're going to come out for the second half. Yeah. So, you'd be wanting to improve on that.
What's your realistic haul of points, and what would you be optimistic about getting?
I said it a little bit earlier on. If I was in Mikel Arteta's shoes, I would be looking to try and win the FA Cup because of our reputation in that competition. You know, we've won the FA Cup with worse squads, I think, so it's doable. But I also think that he should be fighting to at least get into Europe in some shape or form, because moving forward, it may be a good way of how you keep certain players and how you bring other players in. So I'm not of the belief that we don't go into Europe. It gives us a year to reset. I think that puts us back a year because we're a self-sustaining model. We're not money bags. We can't afford to be out of Europe and splash the cash. We need Europe as a bit of a draw.
What's your realistic points tally from 10 games that are going to come?
Oof.
Knowing we play Liverpool, play the Scum, we play Wolves, Leicester. It's a tough. It's a good way for him to measure himself in these final 10 games and measure the squad that he has.
Let me answer it like this. I don't know if I can give you an exact points tally, but we're going to be weighing up 10 games versus 10 games. It's really equal. And in the first 10, you said there was one loss and how many draws?
5 draws.
Okay. Well, let's be going for less draws. You know, and keeping the wins. Do you know what I mean? Let's improve on that so that we don't get any more losses, but let's try and knock down the draws. And I don't know how that draws works, right? Maybe it was an away home thing with the way that the season is going to be going. You know, I don't know if home and away whether home and away is such a factor now with the way football's going to be.
Yeah, I would say the majority of those were away from home. Thinking of Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Chelsea. We had that sending off, which was a tough one. Lucky to get a draw there. Burnley was a dead rubber. He shoehorned Martinelli on the right-hand side. I don't know why. I think that was his worst game of the whole 15 was Burnley. And that was a draw. And then there was another draw. That's about it. But okay, I'm looking at 19 points. I think realistically we can win 6 games, draw 1, and lose 3. Hopefully we can do a little bit better than that, but 19 points is realistic. We're going to need to do
21.
quite a few points better to get into the top 4. Tony, what are you thinking from 10 points that Arteta should get?
21.
21, 7 wins. Break it down.
6 wins, 3 draws, and a loss.
Okay, 6 wins in a tough schedule. 21 points. Rohan.
I think also it's going to be around 19 points. You know, 6 wins and a draw is I think what we can hope for right now, because you know we've got difficult fixtures to go. In fact, in the last 10, I think we had comparatively easier fixtures. And we did this in the last show. So we have City to play, Liverpool, Leicester, Wolves, Spurs. You know, that's like 5 or 6 of our games. These are difficult games, you know, and you know, so that's why we should hope. And for the people who might not have seen the previous episode, we actually got Arsenal into Europe, so into the Champions League, in fact. So you know, we were being fair with the Arsenal results. Maybe we were being a little bit unfair with Chelsea and United. But you know that brings to the fore that we have everything to play for. Actually, if you look at it, we're just 5 points behind with a game in hand, you know. So there is no reason, if we put in a good shift, we can't get there. But that means that we have to win 2 more games than the next, than our competitors. So which means realistically, we need at least 24, 25 points out of the next 30 to be able to make it into the Champions League, which is the dream. He should try to achieve it. Crazier things have happened in the Premier League. But again, as we draw closer to the FA Cup ties, I think he should also give some priority there. I'd like to see some silverware.
Yeah. In case anyone doesn't know, the league comes back on the 17th, which is 2 weeks from now, and 10 days later, the FA Cup will start on the 27th. Lombard Camp said no fans could be good for our mentally frail players. No pressure from our own home fans getting frustrated.
I think that's an excellent point. I think that's an excellent point that Lundberg Camp has made, right? Because at the end of the day, right, sometimes in football it's about very fine margins, right? And we've got a few players, you know, that may be playing for us that haven't really played for us before, right? Suarez, for example. Pablo Mari's another one, right? Nicolas Pepe, who's still finding his way a little bit. Some of the younger players. So maybe I'm just looking for a positive here. That added pressure of the crowd, you know, if there's a misplaced pass, they're not going to have that. It may be something that helps those players in the small term.
Yeah, let me throw this out before we're going to get out of here in a few minutes. The assembled. Who are the standout players in the different areas of the pitch or the pitch? I'm not sure that Arteta can improve in what he has done so far. Tony, give me 3 players that are in the Arsenal team right now that could make the difference, either going forward or at the back, that you have hope in for the coming 10 games.
Leno, Pepe, Saka.
Leno, Pepe, and
Saka.
Saka can make the difference. Rohan, 3 players that you're excited about that could be the difference makers this season in games.
This season, and I think for the fortunes of Arsenal also, I think 3 players who are really important are, Leno. I agree with that. Martinelli and Aubameyang. Yeah, these are the 3 players that I feel are right up there.
Dan, 3 players we're excited about that could win a game for us.
I think the first 2 are easy, and that's, I agree with the lads. Leno, you know, he's keeping us in games at times. Aubameyang, he's where the goals are coming from. The third spot, there's a couple. You know, someone like Xhaka, who's trying to sort of, you know, if he's going to sign a contract, or even if he wants to leave, usually players play out of their skin, right? And there's a lot of talent there. Martinelli, another young one who's come in, and when he's given the chance, is a spark. But towards the end, before the season stopped, didn't seem to be getting as many chances for whatever reasons.
Yep, exactly.
Or even maybe a Torreira. You know, if Torreira's given a chance, it's obvious. I mean, if you're the manager, right, and you're looking at the players coming back after this absence, and you're looking at Martinelli and you're looking at Torreira, and you see how much they've beefed themselves up in this quiet period, sure, that's going to say to you, I'm pretty impressed with that. You know, they could have been playing Fortnite. You know what I'm saying? Like some of our other players that are earning a lot of money at our club, but no, they didn't just sit on their hands. They actually were working. That would go a long way with me. And I'd like to think that that kind of thing is rewarded in minutes.
Yeah, and the assemble is saying this. Think about it. Your goalkeeper is a key player. And you can win titles with goalkeepers. I'm not saying we're going to win the title next season. But you can
add on to that. You're right. Goalkeeper is our key player. But all I'm going to say is Almunia.
Consider the
all I will say is Karius.
It's been a while since I have felt confident with who we've got in goal. There's been a lot of times where I've really liked the team, and I've always felt, why haven't we got a good goalkeeper? We're missing a good goalkeeper. We're letting in some really sloppy goals. I know that Rohan mentioned the couple of problems earlier that Leno has, but I'm confident that he's at a coachable age, that if we can see those weaknesses, 4 guys sat on a podcast with opinions, then the goalkeeping coaches can see those problems, and hopefully they'll earn their money and work on that and iron it out.
Yeah.
So reasons to be hopeful. There are certain areas in the field that we can see we are well stocked in. I'm thinking about goalkeeper and the left side and the forwards. And we can fill in a few other places, especially in midfield. Personally, I don't know how I got through the whole podcast without mentioning Pablo Mari. I think he has done a good job for those 2 games that he played right at the end, and it will be interesting to see if Arteta picks up that loop and keeps going. It looks like David Luiz is the mainstay, like we said, and I think Pablo Mari is the better defender of those 3 that we've mentioned already. Um, but definitely challenges ahead. We've got some good games coming up. I'm starting to get excited. 2 weeks out now. Yes, this is our final thoughts, and I'll go around. Rohan, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts are that now that they've started contact training, I want them to strategize the next 10 games. It's not impossible to get into Europe. Of course, we need other teams to drop points. It's not in our hands, but we need to play for some pride. We ended the season before really badly, and that continued into this season. We have to end this season well and take it into next season. You know, it's just an extension there, and that will give confidence to the fans. That will give confidence to Arteta, to the players, to everyone. That is what I want to see in the next 10 games. I'm excited.
Good. Tony.
I want to see a full 90-minute performance and not flat one half, strong another half, or
Yeah, and I think fitness will have been elevated since Christmas time. In can you believe it's 6 months already? I can't believe we're halfway through this year already, and it's been a crap year. So let's hope we get through this year with everybody safe. I mean, that's my final thoughts. I'm excited for football. Let's hope we can do it safely. I know Mahir would feel the same way and hopes. Stan, your final word?
Yeah, moving forward, I really want to see Suarez and Pablo Mari get minutes in these last 10 games, and also Danis Ceballos. Even though I've been saying that Danis Ceballos, I don't think wants to stay, I want to see him play in a way, because I want the fans to see whether he's worth it or not. And those 3 players I've just mentioned, one of them's on loan, Suarez. We've got Pablo Mari on loan with an option to buy. Let's find out now, in these last 10 games, whether they're worth the time and investment. There's no point starting and having Mari on the bench and starting with the 3 that we've spoken about. Surely Pablo Mari is now up to speed. When he first came in, there was talk about him not being fit. He's had plenty of time. He's got to be on the same fitness levels as everybody else. He's a left-sided defender, which is what we know that we need in the centre-back position. Let's see these guys play and make a decision in the last 10 games whether it's worth pursuing them or we look elsewhere. I don't want to be coming to the end of the season and thinking, well, I'm not sure about Pablo Mari because I've not really seen him play. We've got the time now. Let's find out.
Yeah, Pablo Mari has had 2 clean sheets in the last 2 games that he played at Portsmouth and West Ham at home. I know you're laughing. I can see you laughing. To improve our defensive record from last season, we have to concede less than 15 goals in 10 games. Let's see what happens. Tony, Stan, and Rohan, thanks for joining me tonight. A long discussion about Arteta, his trends, and let's see what happens in the 10 games to come. Definitely getting excited for football in 2 weeks from now. And that's it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time, come on, you Gooners, up the Arsenal.